Hi everybody and welcome back to a new booktube video on my booktube channel, Books with Leo, and today I'm here to talk about all of my February reads. I'm not going to be talking about all of them because this is like a wrap up slash a recent favourite, so I talk about a few that I like the most. I will go briefly over some books that I did read but that weren't like my absolute favourites, but I still wanted to mention. And yeah, without any further ado, let's just get right into the video. Okay, so I have my iPad right here and I have my Goodreads on there. So I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books in February. Exactly 10. That is so satisfying. Okay, the first book I read, is fortunately The Milk by Neil Gaiman, which is a very, very short novella. And it is basically a children's story all about this dad, and he goes out to get some milk for his kids, but he does not return in time because he goes on all these wild adventures, and he tells his kids when he gets back home about those wild adventures. In reality, it's probably he just ran into somebody he knew at the store. But when he got home to his kids, he spun like this whole fantastical story around it. This is one of my favourite Neil Gaiman books. It is so cute. It is so heartwarming. And I listened to the audiobook. And I listened to this audiobook together with my sister because she was visiting me for a few days. And we had so much fun listening to this. So we listened to it together. This was the second time I was personally reading it. But yeah, this will always be a favourite. But since it was a reread, it's not like, wow, what a surprise. Next up, I read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This book was kindly lent to me by Lalena, who's also my friend here on BookTube, so definitely check out her channel. She's one of my favourites. She has amazing style and she's such a lovely human being, so definitely check her out. If I don't forget, I'll also link her up here. The Hunting Party. This is a thriller by Lucy Foley, and it's basically about these people who go to a cabin in the woods for New Year's, and they have like nice dinners together, and they're an old group of friends, but they haven't seen each other in quite a long time. And they get together in the cabin, and one of them dies, and it's like, who did it? And we also follow the proprietors, like the people who, well, they don't own the land, but they like work there, and they work for like the cabins and the tourists that come to visit. And we follow their perspectives as well, especially from one lady. I forgot her name, but yeah, her perspective. And I think we see several perspectives of the friend group. And all of the characters in this book were so interesting and so morally grey. And that was one of my favourite things about this thriller. So I really, really enjoyed that. And I also really enjoy like that feeling of like, oh my God, they're all in this cabin and one of them killed one of the others and like who did it and scary stuff. So this was definitely a very enjoyable read for me. I think I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. And I immediately ordered Lucy Foley's other book. What was it called? The Guest List. I really, really wanted the hardback, but I couldn't find it, so I got the paperback. It's a sad story, but really, I'm really excited to dive into that one as well. And thank you so much to Lalena for lending me this book. I think I would count this as a favourite of the month. Like, it's not one of my favourites ever, but definitely a favourite for February. Then I read The Mangle Street Murders by M.R.C. Kasasian. What a name. This wasn't really a favourite, but I do want to mention it because I think there might be people out there who really like this. If you've read a lot of Sherlock retellings already and you're like tired of them, then don't read this because that's what happened to me. I read Sherlock when I was quite young, like the actual Sherlock, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then I read the series by Brittany Cavallero, which is like based off of Sherlock. I've also watched the BBC Sherlock show. And a lot of thrillers that I pick up are Sherlock based. Like sometimes you just go into a thriller or like a historical thriller and it's Sherlock inspired yet again, and you're like, okay, but we've seen this now, you know? And that's sort of what happened to me when I read The Mangle Street Murders. It's this really eccentric man and his niece who's recently lost both her parents, I think. She travels to London. It's also set in the Victorian age. She travels to London and she then comes and helps solve murders, and he's like her eccentric uncle and she's like a newcomer. It also reminded me a lot of The Diviners, but like not set in the 20s. And I was just like a bit tired of this narrative. Like I felt like I had read it already. So that's why this wasn't a favourite, but I do think if you like Victorian era stories, if you like murder mysteries, then this is definitely something you should check out. Then I read The Season of the Witch, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina 1 by Rees Brennon. Not the graphic novel, I read the adaptation based on the TV show. I liked it a lot more than I expected, but still not a favourite. I did like it more than I expected, like I said already, because it had so much more humour than I felt like it would have. I'm not sure why. I just felt like it would be a bit dry and stuff, but it wasn't at all. It was very humorous and I flew through it. But I did feel like there were so many characters' perspectives who we followed in this book, and it was like the author wasn't sure like what choices she wanted to make. And that was a little bit off-putting to me personally. I feel like if you haven't watched the show, you will be so lost reading this book. And I feel like that's just not something that's meant to happen. So wasn't really a favourite, but definitely if you've watched the show and you want more Sabrina content, then I would recommend this book. Then I read Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This was definitely a favourite, even though when I first started reading it, I was like, I don't think I like this. But then I got into it and there were a lot more witchy elements that got into the story, and I was like, okay, now I love it now. So Legendborn is an urban fantasy and it is based off Arthurian legends, and I have not read a lot of Arthurian legend stories, or I really don't know that much about like the legend of the round table and like all the knights and stuff. I don't know. So I liked that it was based off of that, because it isn't something that I've read a lot, and I feel like it isn't something that I see in fiction a lot either way. It might be something that is in fiction a lot, it's just I haven't seen it. That's probably it. We follow Brie Matthews, and her mother was killed in an accident and she feels like something weird happened there, maybe something magical, and then she goes to this new university and she learns of this secret society there, and her suspicions are sort of confirmed. And then she tries to join the secret society to figure out more about her mother's death and her own powers as well. And yeah, she can see demons. It's very much like demon fighting, secret society, a bit dark academia in the mix as well. Because Brie is black, her experience in these societies is much different, because she also struggles with all that prejudice and racism that is within these century-old societies. And I really enjoyed how the author like sort of juxtaposes that. I'm sorry for that word. I didn't know any other word. She juxtaposes that with the more grassroots organizations of magic that exist within the black communities, and she wrote those in as well, and those were more witchy, and that was so interesting. And especially the scenes where her therapist, another thing I really liked, there's like therapy in this book, which is really nice and good to have in fiction. So the woman she talks to shows her like memories of her family and where she came from, and they go on like sort of time travel memory trips together. Really cool. There were so many things I loved about this book. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. Yes, a really fun read. Then I read the Henna Wars by Adiba Jaigirdar, and I really enjoyed this. It was so good. The romance was amazing. I kept wanting to read on and on. It was so lovely. So basically, this is a romance. It's a YA romance, and it follows two girls, and they have a business contest at school, and they both start up like henna shops, like henna businesses, and then they compete, and it talks a lot about culture, about being queer and Muslim, and sisterhood, having sisters, having close connections to girls, and it's such a wonderful read. I loved it, I flew through it, and I would recommend it to anybody. Then I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Loved it. Okay, so let's be upfront. If you've read a lot of adult thrillers, then maybe this will leave you a little bit like, I've seen it before and I know what's going to happen. But if you're new to the thriller genre, or if you just want like a quick YA thriller that is really captivating nonetheless, I would definitely recommend this. This is basically about a girl, and she's looking into this case that is really big in her town. This is the case of Andy Bell, who was murdered, and her boyfriend died a few days later by suicide. So definitely a trigger warning for that. And Pippa Fitzamobi is like, I don't think the guy that we all judged for this, he was never convicted because he killed himself, the boyfriend. She's like, I don't think he did it. And so for her final essay in school, she decides to look into the case. And that's basically this book. And it's like, she's just a little detective, and it's so fun to read. It is so captivating. I just kept wanting to read. It's really funny as well. There's amazing female friendships in there, and just the connections between the characters and how much banter they had, and then also the tension of the case and like trying to figure out what happens, made it just a really fun read. I've also bought the second book in the series, which focuses on an altogether new case, which I love when thriller series do that. So I can't wait to pick that one up as well, and I really enjoyed this read. Then I read The Body Is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love by Sonya Renee Taylor. Okay, so at the beginning of this book, I was really into it, but then I felt like the author was really repeating herself at the end of the story. So I was like, I feel like I've read this already. And then even on top of that came like a little summary at the end. So I was like, I've read it, I know. Nonetheless, I really enjoyed this read. I feel like if you want to learn more about feminism and you want to broaden your feminism horizons a little bit, then this is definitely a good step up from like your introductory feminist books. This book has a big focus on our bodies and the way our bodies are oppressed, especially black bodies and disabled bodies and bigger bodies. And it also focuses on body terrorism, which is like actual people dying because of medical neglect and stuff like that, different things. But then it also has this like sort of more spiritual side to it, a more poetic side, because the author is a spoken word artist as well, and that really shines through in her book. I would highly recommend the audiobook because she's like such an amazing narrator and it's really nice to listen to. And radical self-love is of course also a big topic in this book. I would just say if you want to know more and if this has made you curious, then definitely check it out because it is a really valuable read. And then I picked up a little read in between, which is It's Okay to Feel Things Deeply by Carissa Potter. This is a really cute graphic novel which just focuses on feeling a lot. And I do. I feel loads of things all the time. My mum used to call me sensitive growing up and I stand by that. I am sensitive. I will cry. I'm not even a Pisces, but I will cry. This book just feels like a warm hug and it basically says it's okay. No matter how you feel, how hard it can be for you, it's okay to feel that way, and it has good sides as well. It just has all these really cute illustrations and a lovely color scheme. It's very simple. You read through it. It's like a breeze, but it was so lovely to read and I really enjoyed it. So if you need a pick-me-up, if you need like an in-between read, if you want to feel good, if you need like a feel-good read, I would highly recommend this book. Then we get to this one, which was definitely a favorite of the month, and that is Rules for Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. I wouldn't say it's a favourite of all time, but it's definitely a favourite for February. This is a book that is also a murder mystery and it is set in a bookstore, and like we follow the bookstore owner, and it's also a murder mystery / thriller bookstore. So they sell all these thrillers and murder mysteries. Well, that's obvious, but okay. I loved it. It's so filled with mysterious things, and the setting of the bookstore and the other bookstore employees and all the characters are really interesting. I did feel like our main character was a bit wacky. Like I wasn't always sure where he was coming from. I didn't always feel like his motivations were logical. At the same time, this was so enjoyable to read, I don't even really care. I know a lot of people have said that the writing is a bit dry and that it can be boring at times. I get why they say that, but I don't agree. It's just a bit of a slow read, even though it's not that long. I would definitely recommend it. It's basically about this guy and an FBI agent comes to his bookstore and she's like, these murders have happened and they're similar as in books that you have written an article about for your bookstore. And so he basically made this list of 8 perfect murders in fiction and he posted that on the blog of the bookstore, and then now somebody is actually committing the murders off of that list. And that's basically what this book is about. And then you read on trying to figure out who's killing these people, but also what their connection is to the main character who owns the mystery bookstore. I enjoyed it a lot. I would recommend it if you're looking for a new thriller that you can read through really quickly, but that is still really interesting and that has a lovely bookstore atmosphere. So those were all of my reads that I read in February and also some of my recent favorites. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave in a comment down below what was your favorite read of February and if you have any recommendations for me personally. And yeah, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!